in obviously both the Senate and in the House.
With me now to discuss Gianna Caldwell and Adriana Cohen. All right, guys, listen, I have a poll on CV Payne. Right now, 56% say Ryan is the reason that this thing did not work. 21% are blaming the Freedom Caucus. 18% the Democrats. Only 5% think the fault lies at the feet of President Trump. Adriana, the political fallout from this.
Well, I took your poll, Charles, and I think Paul Ryan is to blame because the Republicans have had 7 years to come up with a viable plan, a better plan than Obamacare, and he's had years to put together consensus within the Republican Party to have it pass. This plan should have been able to hit the ground running for Donald Trump. Instead, they cobbled it together very clumsily. They were not able to, Paul Ryan and the establishment were not able to build a consensus around it, and now this looks like a failure for Donald Trump, and this is exactly what he didn't need. I think President Trump over-relied and trusted Paul Ryan a little too much. Clearly, he doesn't have as much influence with the caucus as he thought he did. And so moving forward, I think Trump will definitely survive this. I think it's more of a speed bump for him. He's definitely going to pivot to other areas like tax reform and regulatory reform, which is going to be a win for him. Those are going to be great for our country and the American people. So Trump will survive this, but it remains to be seen whether or not Paul Ryan does.
You know, Gianna, on the campaign trail, a lot of people said Donald Trump's going to have a tough time navigating Washington, D.C., and he just said we learned a lot about the arcane rules. That's why he probably said, listen, I'm going to let Paul Ryan shepherd this. He knows how the system works. He can get us through all of this. And in hindsight, people are wondering, did you have to go this route? Did you overplay your hand? Did you underestimate this or that? Certainly, I feel like the fault lies at the feet of Paul Ryan, and even some people out there who think this was a deliberate crash, if you will. But how do you see it, Gianna?
Well, I took your poll also, Charles, and I was in that 21% that blamed the Freedom Caucus. And I tell you, President Trump also blames them. And if you look at his tweet earlier this morning, which he said the irony is the Freedom Caucus, which is very pro-life and against Planned Parenthood, allows Planned Parenthood to continue if they stop this plan, which they did. And this isn't the first time the Freedom Caucus have kind of jumped into something looking to be purist on every issue. They did this with John Boehner on many occasions. And the difficulty is, this isn't just the first stop with the House. If the House would have voted for this plan, it would have went over to the Senate. It would have been further negotiations to get something that's more fitting. Now we're in a situation whereas with Obamacare, this is going to cost us about $2 trillion, whereas when the Democrats first proposed it, they said it was going to be over $800 million covering 31 million people. This bill covers, the law covers 25 million people now.
Well,
so
we know Obamacare is a failure. We know it's a failure.
It is, but the Freedom Caucus allowed for the continuation of that failure by not supporting the president and Paul Ryan on this issue as they have done with many other issues.
Well, here's the thing, Adriana, and perhaps when President Trump said we learned the lessons on loyalty, maybe that leans toward what Gianna was trying to say here. We know that there's some animosity and some frustration. Certainly, he would have liked to have seen this bill go through. But by the same token, you have to ask yourself, these folks feel like they're elected to represent the constituents and not necessarily fall on their sword. So how does it shake out from here?
Well, I can say, Gianna made a good point. The Freedom Caucus is partially to blame because you can't ask for a perfect bill. You have to be willing to compromise when you work in politics.
And they got some of their items in that bill.
That's right. So, if you walk away with 75% of what you want, that's a success. So I think the Freedom Caucus was playing hardball just a little too much. But moving forward, I think Donald Trump will definitely survive this because when he moves on to other things which we know are going to be very popular and great for the American people, regulatory reform, fixing Dodd-Frank, renegotiating NAFTA, the list goes on. And I think down the line, this will prove to just be a speed bump for Donald Trump, not a death knell for him whatsoever. He's going to have many more successes coming down the pike, and I think that Democrats will come back to the table and be willing to negotiate with the Republicans once Obamacare truly does explode. Then they're going to be held accountable.
One thing also, guys, I think from here on out, President Trump will be more involved in some of this stuff, not necessarily delegate it all or can put complete trust in the establishment that says, hey, we know how to get it done.
He's going to have to get involved in steamroll,
when it was clear that,
honestly.
It was clear that the folks that he put his trust in could not get this through. Guys, thank you both very much. Healthcare now dead. It's time to look ahead as President Trump to